All right, people. Bitcoin finally turned really bullish, and there's 5 major geopolitical factors and economic factors that are showing why. And so let's go over them. First of all, foremost, there's the rate cuts. That's the most direct one. Usually people say when rate cuts happen, the economy goes downward, but that's not happening this time. You know why that's not happening is because the economy is not that bad right now. Usually when they do rate cuts, the economy is already in a recession and they're cutting rates to try to salvage what's left of the economy. That's not what they're doing this time. Yes, the labor market's slightly softer than it was, and the economic growth is slowing down a little bit, but we're nowhere near in a recession. Inflation is actually coming down, and they're basically just trying to cut back to the neutral rate, which is about 2.25 or so, and they're at like over 5. So expect about 250 points of rate cuts over the next year or two. And they just did 50, and they're probably going to do 50 again by the end of this year. So the rate cuts make Bitcoin a lot more attractive in comparison to the bond market. Now, yes, bond yields did go up today, but I think that's just like a market reaction because they priced in too much cutting. And like over time, it will actually come down. So like the short-term and long-term bond rates, they should both come down. And when they do, they're not going to yield as much interest. And that makes risk-on assets, or risky assets, I shouldn't say risk-on assets, risky assets like crypto and stocks more viable when compared to those assets. So they're definitely going to, they're definitely going to be investors that pull their money out of bonds and put them in crypto and stocks. So there should be more inflow of money in that way. Now, there's the political donations, help with regulation and changing administrations. There's a lot of political donations, and that helps a lot because money talks in Washington on both parties. Now, they've supported both sides of the aisle, and depending on which candidate they think is actually going to win in Senate races and in the presidential race. Harris is not blind to this. She knows that she doesn't want to fight $120 million every single election cycle, and she wants some of that money. Plus, there are some in the crypto industry that have donated large amounts to Democratic candidates. You have Democrats like Richie Torres. You have other Democrats that are also pro-crypto as well. Plus, you have like a big donor in Mark Cuban that is pro-crypto, as well as guys like Chris Larson, Brad Garlinghouse, and stuff that generally fall on the Democratic side. And they're obviously nudging for better regulatory environment. And of course, Fair Shake is like in Arizona, for instance, they're supporting Ruben Gallego instead of Lake. So instead of Kerry Lake. So obviously Gallego is going to be more welcoming towards crypto assets. Money talks, and it talks to both sides. And Cuban has actually been asked by Kamala Harris about crypto, and he's been trying to get her to be more pro-crypto, obviously. So Donald Trump is already more pro-crypto because he's launched his own crypto project, and obviously he wants that crypto super PAC money as well. Kamala Harris is becoming more pro-crypto, and basically, there's going to be more regulations that are more favorable towards crypto. Like Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi both want FIT 121 being passed before the end of this year. So we're making a lot of progress on both sides of the aisle. So no matter which administration comes in next, they're going to be more pro-crypto than the Biden administration. And maybe if Cuban gets that SEC chairmanship, I do actually think that he's going to do great things for crypto. So the political donations, the help with regulation, and as you can see this time, like Richie Torres and other Democratic members also joined in on the grilling of Gary Gensler. So it wasn't only the Republicans grilling him, it was the Democrats doing a little bit of grilling themselves. So he's coming under attack from both sides. So the political donation, the help with regulation, and the changing administrations, that's another positive step for crypto. And I don't actually think it matters who actually wins the elections. It's all going to be positive for crypto. The third thing is inflation is coming down. And I think the CPI for when we get it next month is going to be even better because gas prices have fallen even more. Now, usually they do a core CPI, which is if you take out the food and gas, but gas actually affects like everything. Price of oil affects everything, and it's been coming down. So the CPI, I believe, is going to come down. If you look at the price of oil on the U.S. On the market right now, it's like $67. It's under $70. I think gas, like at least in my area, is going to be heading towards $2.50 a gallon, possibly less by the time like this time next month, basically, because Saudi Arabia is ramping up production. and China's demand is going down because their economy is basically in the gutter. So those two factors will bring the price down even more. So you're going to see like lower $2 gas, maybe even sub $2 gas. If like the market deteriorates for gas prices even more, that's going to bring a lot of the costs down. You're going to see stuff coming down in the supermarket. You're going to see the CPI coming down. Housing prices, they can't really get to come down because we just have a huge demand for housing in the United States. But the other stuff will actually come down. That will like hit the CPI pretty hard. And with a lower CPI, Jerome Powell and the other Fed chairman or the other Fed chairs are going to want to lower rates even more. So basically, the inflation is coming back to normal. And I think some prices might even be decreasing. The fourth thing is there's a Chinese stimulus, which is kind of a warning sign, but right now it's good because it's mainly for retail property. They're making it easier for people to buy property. They're making the rates better for getting money. And I think some people will actually use that to buy crypto. Yes, crypto is technically not allowed to be bought or traded in China, but a lot of people do it like behind the scenes, especially politicians and rich people. So them giving economic stimuluses, I think that'll be beneficial towards crypto. And remember, like 55% of the hash rate is still in Chinese controlled pools, not 55% of the hash power, but about 55% of the hash rate. So the Chinese stimulus, although not direct like a US stimulus, will still help the crypto market. However, there is a warning sign to all of this because if the Chinese economy crashes entirely, which is very capable of doing because the authorities there have been basically hiding all the numbers, saying that we don't need to know them, slowly over the last couple of years. I do believe their economy's actually been shrinking. They just don't really want to tell people. But if you actually talk to people in China, they know that things are actually getting worse. Youth unemployment is huge. Like banks are having to take on worse and worse debt in order to prop the property market up. And they're having to like export more and more things to actually make up for their failing real estate market in China. Like a lot of experts saying like, the property in China is maybe like a fifth of its value. The actual value is about a fifth of what it is right now because they have an oversupply and the government just keeps on doing building projects. And a lot of the provinces actually have building projects slated up for the next 20 years that people just don't want to buy. They actually have more housing in China than to house their entire population a couple of times over, honestly. And there's hundreds of millions of units that actually are not sold or that no one actually wants. But since Chinese people have the vast majority of their wealth tied up in the real estate market, if real estate collapses, then everyone's wealth basically gets wiped away more or less. And the economy will go into a recession or a depression. And since they're a one-party system, remember, they can't just vote the guy out. They have to have like marching in the streets or revolution. And of course, the Communist Party is very afraid of that. So they're going to do anything to try to prop it up. Now, right now, giving more stimuluses, short-term wise, that's very good for the overall crypto market. But if China falls apart, then the other countries that rely on like Belt and Road stuff, like Germany, Australia, they're going to be affected too. So it's going to be more of like a global type of recession, at least in the countries that are actually affected. And it'll be like several countries that have China as a major trading partner. Maybe not so much the US, but like the people on the Belt and Road stuff, and also like the major regional partners. So it'll be like more of a global drop, and that will affect the US market as well. So that will actually affect crypto as well. Now, how can you tell that's about to happen? Well, one huge warning sign that happens right before is if China really starts to devalue the yuan, because they would devalue the yuan to make their exports cheaper, to export more stuff so they can actually create more jobs at home because people will have that demand. But there's a problem with that because other countries will start to impose tariffs, more and more tariffs, if they try to export more and more stuff, and that will hammer China a lot. So watch out for that. If like you see the yuan suddenly going to like 1 to 8, 1 to 9, 1 to 10, right now I think it's like 1 to 7.2 or something, but if you see it going to like 1 to 8, 1 to 9, 1 to 10, 1 to 11, you know the Chinese economy is slowly going into a death spiral, and you might want to watch out for a bear market if that actually happens. So that's the fourth factor. The Chinese stimulus is going to be good right now, but it could actually be a warning sign later. And the SEC has actually rolled back most of SAB 121, and that's a huge positive factor in terms of investment in the United States. SAB 121 did not allow people to be custodians, but the SEC just made a exception for that, and they're now allowing registered and regulated financial institutions be custodians for crypto, and that is a big step. And that allows banks, financial institutions just to be custodians for crypto or allowed to hold crypto. Now, why did the SEC make this change? Because people on both sides of the aisle were calling for SAB 121 to be completely repealed, both Democrats and Republicans, once again, because of the political donations. And there's just more and more pro crypto people in Congress. So I think Gary Gensler saw the writing on the wall. Plus, two of his SEC commissioners are in disagreement with him. That's like 2 out of 5. That's like 40% of the people on his own board are in disagreement with him. So they rolled back the most important part of it just so it wouldn't all get overridden. Because I think if they kept on oh, we're going to keep everything, I think it would have all actually gotten overridden in a while. And they really didn't want that they wanted to save some face, but they rolled back the most important part of it, which means regulated U.S. financial institutions can actually custody crypto. And that is a big, big deal. So those are the 5 factors that are positive for crypto right now, which is the rate cuts, the political donations, the inflation that's coming down, the Chinese stimulus, and the SEC rolling back SAB 121. Now, there is a negative factor, and that is the Middle Eastern war. Now, Benjamin Netanyahu, or the modern day version of the guy who thinks he's King David, but he's not, he's actually made it pretty clear that he would prefer Trump in the White House over Biden. And he also, I think, in my opinion, he basically just wants to take over Gaza and maybe eventually get rid of the West Bank, but Gaza right now. And he definitely wants to teach Hezbollah a lesson. Now, there has been growing tensions, and he actually might declare war on Hezbollah. And of course, this could be his October surprise for the U.S. election too, because remember, he prefers Trump over Biden because Trump, he's seen as more pro-Israel than Biden, and Trump is more pro-Israel than Biden or Harris. Now, they're both pro-Israel. You're not going to get a pro-Palestinian president in the United States. That's not going to happen. But one's more pro-Israel than the other, and Netanyahu sees Trump as being more willing to actually help Israel or support Israel further than the Harris administration. So he might have this little October surprise and actually start his ground war, both because he does actually just want to start a ground war with Hezbollah and because he wants to tilt the election in Trump's favor. And of course, if he actually escalates, the party that's in power right now will actually get blamed for the situation in the Middle East. So that could actually help Trump at the polls or on election day. So there's that calculation going in as well. And that would actually affect the market in different ways. One, it would disrupt a lot of oil supply routes, which would actually make the price of gas go up, which would actually make inflation go up. Now, that's going to come against the factor of Saudi Arabia producing just more gas and China's demand coming down. So the Middle Eastern war can kind of counterbalance that. Now, I don't think gas will suddenly go super high in price and affect inflation that much, but it might prevent it from coming down from 280, which is what it is right now at my place, coming down to from 280 to 250 or 240 or possibly even lower, because I think that's where gas prices are going if nothing happens in the Middle East. Yes, there is a ceasefire deal that's being in motion, but I don't really know if Israel will actually accept that. They might just go ahead and attack Hezbollah anyways, have the situation in the Middle East heat up because they want to affect the U.S. elections in some way or other, or they just want to basically settle things in the Middle East with Hezbollah in Lebanon. And also, I do think they're eventually going to refocus on Gaza and Hamas as well, if they're not already. So there's a lot of tension going on there. And that's the one major wild card that could actually be bearish for crypto. Yes, there is Putin's threats that he could possibly nuke someone, but I highly doubt he'll do it. He's had drawn a lot of red lines since the conflict started, and every time we cross him, he just draws a new one somewhere out there. So I don't think he's going to go the nuclear route, and I think he's smart enough not to, or to actually avoid that. The war in Ukraine is going to drag on. I don't think that's going to affect the crypto market. I highly doubt that's going to affect the economy all that much. And I don't think that's a factor. I do think Putin is basically just bluffing at this point because he's essentially been bluffing all along. And I don't think that war is actually going anywhere in the next couple of months. So that's kind of like where I have it for right now. We have like 5 positive factors, 1 negative factor, but I think the positives outweigh the negatives. So that's why I think we're going up. So that's the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe, hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.